The stars shimmered like silent witnesses to crimes too distant for justice. Somewhere beyond the asteroid belts and forgotten moons, the Vega family lived in modest peace on the colony world of Alara 9, a blue and green orb tucked into a quiet corner of Galactic Sector 12. Their house, a modern dome of glass and steel nestled within the shadow of snow-capped peaks, buzzed each morning with the sounds of life. Harlan Vega, a retired astroengineer, spent his days teaching colonial students. His wife, Leona, tended their greenhouse, cultivating Earth's rarest herbs in foreign soil. And their son, Eli, just 10, believed the universe was kind, vast, and full of wonder. They were, in every sense, ordinary, which is why what happened next would ignite fury unlike anything the galaxy had known. That morning, the sky fractured. 6 triangular crafts pierced the clouds, their underbellies brimming with blue plasma. People ran, terrified not from an invasion. Those were rare, but from what the ships represented. Each bore the insignia of the Triumvirate, a coalition of the galaxy's most powerful empires, known more for swift executions than diplomacy. Without warning, the ships released hover drones that scanned the settlement. One stopped above the Vega house. Moments later, soldiers descended, tall, scaled beings in obsidian armor, their eyes glowing beneath ridged helms. They marched with precision, surrounding the family as Harlan shielded Eli behind him. A hologram flickered to life. It bore the face of General Nasker, a four-eyed reptilian warlord known across systems for his ruthlessness. Harlan Vega, you are charged with transmitting strategic data to insurgent forces opposing the Triumvirate. By order of interstellar decree, your lineage is forfeit. I don't know what you're talking about, Harlan shouted. We're civilians. Leona moved to her son, clutching him tightly, her hands trembling. There must be some mistake. We don't even leave this sector. General Nasker's expression remained unchanged. You were warned what consequences treason brings. The execution was live-streamed to every major system. It was not simply a punishment, it was a statement. Harlan fell first, shot in the back of the head while shielding his son. Leona screamed, but was silenced by a cold energy blade drawn across her throat. Eli's cries were soft, not from lack of fear, but from disbelief. He didn't understand why. He died with eyes still open, watching the sky, waiting for someone to stop it. Back on Earth, the footage arrived via encrypted networks, first through military channels, then into civilian hands. People gathered in silence as the video played on massive screens in New York, Nairobi, Mumbai, and Lunar Station 1. It wasn't just the brutality, it was the ease of it, the unearned cruelty. In the darkness of an underground bunker beneath Colorado, 4 high-ranking military officials sat around a circular table, their faces pale with disbelief. One of them, a woman with sharp eyes and graying hair, pressed a button embedded in the surface. The screen before them went black. Enough, she said. General Ava Langston had been part of Earth's High Defense Council for over 30 years. She'd seen war, betrayal, and peace deals that cost more than wars themselves. But this was different. We warned them, said Admiral Rourke, his voice heavy. We told them Earth would not tolerate another public execution. They didn't just kill a family, Langston replied. They mocked our silence. They wanted to see how far we'd been before we break. Public wants blood, someone muttered. They're calling for war. We can't win a war against 3 empires, Rourke snapped. Not head on. Langston turned slowly. No, but we can send a message. The room fell still. The words hovered, sharp and uncertain. It's been 12 years, one of the advisors whispered. He hasn't even been thawed. Langston walked to a wall panel and pressed her palm against it. The biometric lock hissed open, revealing a dark hallway descending into the earth. There are tools you use in war, she said, her voice colder now. And then there are monsters you keep for when war isn't enough. The chamber was silent save for the rhythmic hum of cryogenic pods. The room was vast, circular, and lined with storage units meant for weapons no treaty ever acknowledged. In the center of the room stood Pod 7, black, reinforced, sealed beyond standard protocol. Langston approached it, tapping in a 6-digit code, then another for override. Inside, the figure didn't look entirely human. His arms were crossed over a rifle that pulsed faintly, and his chest bore a single, stitched American flag over black tactical armor. His face was covered with a sleek metallic mask shaped like a skull, one forged from an experimental earth alloy. His hair was gone, his body heavily augmented, but he was still man enough to feel. "Wake him," Langston ordered. Technicians moved swiftly, prepping the revival protocols. Fluid drained. Limbs twitched. Internal systems came online with quiet chimes. The man gasped as if rising from death itself. Steam poured from the pod. The lights above flickered, not from malfunction, but from the energy shift his body caused as it recalibrated. "Reaper," Langston said. He stepped from the pod, scanning the room, then focused on her. The skull mask tilted slightly. "I was dreaming," he said. His voice was mechanical, but human, deep, weathered. "Of what?" "Peace." She handed him a datapad. It showed the Vega family, the still frames, the look in the boy's eyes. "They took a child," she said. He stared for a long time. "Why me?" he asked. "You have armies. We need more than war. We need terror, the kind only you leave behind." Reaper said nothing for several moments. "Then how many?" "3 generals, each his extended family, offspring, cousins, hidden in different sectors. I don't do assassinations anymore." Langston's jaw tensed. "This isn't assassination. It's retribution." Reaper looked down at the image of Eli Vega again, and the silence that followed felt like the earth itself was holding its breath. "Gear me up," he said. Langston nodded. "Codename, Operation Nocturne. Full black. No rescue. No retrieval." Reaper turned toward the chamber's far wall, where racks of weapons and armor waited like silent hounds. "There's nothing left to retrieve." As he suited up, Langston watched. She remembered when he was still human, when they called him by his real name. But after what he'd seen, after what Earth made him become, the name no longer mattered. He selected his rifle from the wall, a matte black assault weapon embedded with old Earth script. On the stock, engraved with a blade, were 3 words. Last words spoken. He sheathed 2 knives, holstered a plasma pistol, and fastened the black tactical cloak over his armor. The skull mask locked into place. The red, white, and blue patch sat over his heart, not because he remembered the flag, but because it reminded others where the Reaper came from. Langston stepped forward one last time. "You understand the objective? Eliminate the Bloodline," he said, voice flat. "Do you remember what they took?" "I remember everything." He walked into the transport chamber, the doors closing behind him. The ship, small, silent, and unregistered, launched minutes later, slipping past orbital defense grids under stealth protocols. Back on Alara 9, snow fell on the graves of the Vega family, freshly marked with synthetic stone. And far across the stars, a voice whispered in an alien palace. "He's awake." By the time anyone tried to stop him, the Reaper would already be close. The transport ship hummed like a predator in silence, cloaked and gliding through empty space toward the first destination on Reaper's list. Inside the narrow cabin, the lighting was low, casting shadows over steel plating and darkened monitors. Reaper sat alone on the rear bench, legs braced, rifle disassembled in his lap. Each piece glinted as he checked tolerances by touch alone. His fingers moved with muscle memory, so ingrained it bordered on ritual. There was no hesitation, no wasted motion. Death, for him, was a practice craft. Across from him, a flickering hologram projected intelligence briefings. Names, faces, coordinates. The descendants of General Nasker had scattered over the decades, some bearing the name proudly, others living quietly under assumed identities. But all of them, by blood and privilege, had benefited from the empire that executed the Vega family. He studied their expressions, pausing on one. Talon Nasker, great-granddaughter of the general, listed as a planetary administrator on Zyron 7. A diplomat, public-facing, untouchable under normal circumstances. She smiled in the image, hands clasped in a gesture of peace, her eyes unaware of the man now watching her. That kind of detachment had become a luxury in this warless age, a luxury humanity could no longer afford. Estimated arrival, 5.2 hours. The ship's onboard AI announced in a sterile tone. Reaper didn't respond. He reassembled the rifle with a final click, then slung it over his back and stood. In the adjacent chamber, a large black crate waited on locking clamps. He keyed it open, revealing his armor and gear. The skull mask, the pulse-reactive cloak, the combat rig packed with EMP charges, grapples, and blade cartridges. The mask went on first, sealing with a hiss. Its HUD flickered to life, bathing his vision in red-orange overlays, heartbeat monitors, gravity sensors, ammunition stats. In the corner, a line of text glowed. Operation Nocturne. Target 1. Zyron, 7. Secure and purge Bloodline. Reaper looked at his reflection in the polished inner door of the pod chamber. The mask didn't reveal much, no emotion, no humanity. But somewhere beneath it, his thoughts churned. 12 years ago, they'd buried him in cryo with full honors and unspoken shame. He wasn't supposed to be needed again. In a time when Earth had chosen diplomacy over retribution, he had been too blunt, too final. They said his methods were obsolete. They said his presence sent the wrong message. Now they'd awaken him with trembling hands and no excuses. As the ship neared atmosphere, turbulence shuddered through the hull. The blizzard raging over Zyron 7's northern hemisphere crackled across the screens. A good omen. Storms made the job easier. Chaos in nature echoed chaos in the mission. He dropped into the exfiltration pod without ceremony. The pod sealed, ejected, and began its descent, slicing through clouds and snow like a blade through cloth. Wind and ice battered the shell. Altitude dropped rapidly. The impact was soft by military standards. He hit the frozen soil in a clearing between two ridge lines, the pod camouflaging itself instantly, blending with the landscape as if it had never existed. He stepped out into white silence, the forest thick with ice-coated evergreens. Visibility was low, but his HUD painted the terrain in wireframes. Heat signatures registered faint flickers in the distance. Residences. Civilian. No threat. The estate was 2 kilometers north, perched against the cliffside, surrounded by anti-air defenses and automated drone patrols. Talon Nasker lived behind triple-reinforced walls, under the protection of the Galactic Council's diplomatic treaty. She was untouchable by every legal system in the quadrant. But Reaper did not operate within legal systems. He moved like a ghost, boots barely crunching snow. The storm provided cover for his movements, masking the slight hum of the active camouflage web across his armor. He disabled 3 aerial sentries in complete silence, firing compact EMP darts into their cores. Each dropped with a fizz of sparks and a faint whine. The wall's perimeter alarm ran on a predictable cycle. He timed his approach, leapt over the northwest gate, and rolled into a maintenance trench. From there, a maintenance hatch gave him direct access into the estate's underbelly. Inside, warmth pulsed through the walls, heat from luxury systems designed to keep Imperial bloodlines comfortable. He crept through narrow corridors, bypassing biometric checkpoints with stolen ID overlays. A backdoor had been placed into the estate's system by Earth's Intelligence Division days earlier. Langston's team, efficient as always. Reaper found her in a glass-walled conference room, surrounded by diplomats and aides. They discussed budget allocations and resource negotiations with planetary delegates. Talon spoke softly, her words precise, political. No hint of fear, no clue of her legacy. He watched from a vent above, noting her cadence, her posture. Then he waited. Timing was crucial. Killing her in front of others would cause a diplomatic scandal. He needed isolation. The opportunity came hours later. Talon dismissed her staff and moved to her private quarters. 2 guards flanked her door. Reaper descended silently behind them, dispatching both with non-lethal shots to the spine. The door opened with a flick of his stolen credentials. She looked up from a data slate, startled. Her hand reached toward a silent alarm. He fired once. Clean shot, the alarm button vaporized. "Who are you?" she asked, her voice cracking. He stepped forward, the skull mask catching the light. Her eyes widened in recognition, not of him personally, but of what he represented. "You don't have to do this," she said quickly. "I wasn't part of the execution. I opposed it. I filed a complaint." He cut her off. "You carry his blood." Talon's hands trembled. "I'm not him. My family doesn't even speak to each other anymore." Reaper raised a rifle. "I have children," she whispered. His finger hovered over the trigger. Her face mirrored the boy's, Eli Vega, moments before death. There was fear, confusion, an ache to understand. She wasn't innocent, but she wasn't the monster either. He pulled the trigger. Her body dropped without sound. He left the rifle casing on her desk, along with a note scrawled into the desktop with a blade. The Bloodline is not immune. He exited without triggering a single alarm, disabling the internal sensors behind him. By the time her staff found her, Reaper was already 10 kilometers away, scaling a frozen ridge, wind howling at his back. Back in orbit, his ship's AI opened a comm line to Langston. "First target neutralized," Reaper said. Langston responded with static at first, then her voice cut through. "Acknowledged. The others will be harder. You're deep now. No extraction until it's finished." "I'm not looking to be extracted." "Understood. Next target data is uploading." Reaper sat in the cockpit, pulling off the skull mask momentarily to wipe the condensation from its interior. His face, pale, weathered, scarred, reflected in the console screen. There was no satisfaction in his expression, no pride, just necessity. The ship adjusted course, engines whispering to life as it turned toward the next system, Vera 3. He reattached the mask and stared out at the stars. They shimmered, as they always did, cold, distant, and silent, and still too far to offer absolution. The descent into Vera 3 was smoother than Xiron 7, but no less dangerous. Orbiting twin suns, the planet glowed gold from space, a world of deserts, palaces, and meticulously maintained artificial oases. Wealth dripped from its atmosphere. Reaper studied the terrain through the shuttle's viewing pane, his expression unreadable behind the skull mask. He had known targets like these before, soft-spoken heirs to hard men. They lived in luxury, cloaked in diplomacy and distance from their forebears' crimes, confident no one would ever dig through the golden sand to unearth the blood beneath. Reaper's mission made no room for absolution. Justice, in his hands, came without scale or sword. Only a rifle and a code carved into old pain. The primary target, Velen Rowe, was a cousin to General Nasker, though she had legally disassociated herself from the name. An architect of influence, she helped design and fund the Empire's sprawling colonial expansions, many of which displaced native species or violated neutral zone agreements. Her fingerprints were not just on war crimes, but on the ink of policies that led to the death of Eli Vega's family. She now resided in the Sky Garden Palace, a spire of glass and solar alloy that towered over the desert like a god's monument to vanity. Reaper landed his cloaked ship 10 kilometers outside the palace perimeter. The storm he'd hoped for never came. Vera 3's sky was brutally clear, its twin suns casting harsh shadows across jagged rock. Stealth would be harder. Heat signature would be harder. Still, he moved, his cloak dynamically shifting to match the sand behind him, his footfalls muffled by an anti-resonance field woven into the soles of his boots. Halfway to the compound, he dropped to a crawl, watching the drone patterns sweep across the sky. Their rhythms were precise, no overlap, no flaw. The Empire had learned from Xiron 7. He respected that, even as he calculated their failure. It took him 5 hours to infiltrate the outer garden walls. 5 hours of timing sensors, disabling cameras with well-aimed micropulses, and hiding in soil deeper than memory. When he finally breached the perimeter, he was beneath a massive glass archway draped in flowering vines genetically engineered to bloom in sand. A servant passed nearby, unaware. A single word spoken, a cough, even breath too loud, and Reaper would have ended their life, clean, silent, without hatred. But they walked on, and he did not kill for convenience. Inside the palace, music played softly, ambient harmonics engineered for relaxation. The ceilings were high, open to the twin moons now rising. Light refracted through crystal panels, dancing across gold-plated walls and water features that ran through the floors like veins. Reaper crouched in a mezzanine above the central hall, watching Velen Row host a reception. Diplomats, artists, and investors mingled around her like planets circling a star. She moved with grace, laughing lightly at some foreign dignitary's joke, her long gown trailing behind her like a river of silver. She didn't look like a murderer. That was always the problem. The worst ones never did. He could have killed her then. An armor-piercing round through the crown of her head would have ended it before her wine glass hit the floor. But too many witnesses, too many diplomats whose governments might demand answers Earth could not afford to give. So he waited. An hour passed. Then two. The crowd thinned, retiring to suites or transports. Velen made her way to her private quarters, flanked by 2 guards. She dismissed them at her chamber door, confident behind biometric locks, auto-defense drones, and reputation. Reaper entered through the ventilation shaft, slipped past heat sensors, and emerged from the wall like a phantom. She stood in front of a mirror, unfastening her necklace, humming some old imperial lullaby. He leveled a rifle. The skull mask stared back at her through the reflection. She froze. "I wondered if you'd come," she said after a long moment. "They warned me after Zyron 7. You stayed. I thought maybe," she turned slowly, not reaching for an alarm, not screaming, "that if I kept building good things, maybe I wouldn't be next." He didn't answer. "I never ordered the death of that family," she continued. "I didn't even know who they were. I tried to stop NASCAR's mandates years ago." Reaper lowered the barrel slightly. Not for mercy. He needed to hear the excuses. He needed the truth, even if it changed nothing. "They made me sign off on the colony removal," she whispered. "They said it was procedural. I didn't know what it led to." He stepped closer, each footfall sounding like judgment itself. "You knew what empire you served," he said. "You knew what NASCAR was. I was trying to survive." He paused, then nodded once. "So, it was Eli Vega." The name silenced her. He raised the rifle again. "Please," she said. "You can't erase a bloodline. It won't fix anything. I'm not here to fix it." The shot echoed once, muffled by the chamber's dampeners. Velen crumpled without grace, her blood forming a delicate arc across the mirror she'd admired herself in seconds before. Reaper walked forward, placed a small white card on her chest. It bore a black insignia, a skull framed by twin laurels. The same image that had started appearing across black market networks, tagged with a phrase whispered in dozens of languages. Earth sent the Reaper. As he left the palace, alarms began to stir. He didn't run. He moved with precision, slipping through servant passages and blind spots he'd memorized hours ago. By the time the first alert rang out, his heat signature had vanished from grid. He reached the ship just before sunrise, booted up the engines in silence, and initiated departure protocols. As Vera 3 shrank behind him, he opened the transmission channel. Langston's voice came in crisp. "Confirmed. Visuals just hit public feeds. You left a card." "Yes." "Good. They're terrified." "They should be." There was a pause, a hesitation, rare in her voice. "Reaper, there's something else." Someone intercepted a coded message from the Imperial capital. "They're preparing something." "What kind of something?" "They're reactivating old assets. One of them might be someone from your past. We don't have full data yet." Reaper remained silent for a long time, then closed the channel. His mind didn't wander often, but the words echoed nonetheless. "Someone from your past." The ship plotted a new course. The next target was on Valtor Prime, the Empire's heart. This one wouldn't be an heir in luxury. This one was a legacy bearer, a name carved in marble. The hardest part wasn't the killing. It was remembering that each target had built their lives on the graves of people like Eli Vega, then pretended they hadn't. As the stars stretched ahead of him, Reaper sat in the pilot's chair, mask off, hands steady. The galaxy was wide, but justice only needed one man. Valtor Prime was not just the capital of the Galactic Empires. It was their monument to permanence. Its towering spires stretched like spears into the black, gilded with alloys mined from dead stars. Orbital defenses webbed the planet like a steel cocoon, and its surface shimmered with domed cities powered by quantum cores and maintained by subjugated species. From orbit, it looked serene, but Reaper knew better. Serenity, in Empire hands, was always manufactured. His ship remained cloaked, wedged into the belly of a derelict freighter drifting in a maintenance lane. Officially, he didn't exist. No ship, no life signs, just another shadow in the dark. He watched the security feeds from hacked satellites, tracing movement patterns of patrols, guard shifts, and atmosphere transport schedules. This would be his final strike. The last descendant, Silent Asker, barely 15, enrolled in the Imperial Academy of Governance. Heir not to a throne, but to a legacy. He was the grandson of General Nasker's eldest son, protected, educated, and praised for being a prodigy. Reaper stared at his file, the boy's face framed in the uniform of a cadet. No medals, no battles, just clean hands and sharp eyes. He didn't want to kill a child. But that decision had been made when Eli Vega was murdered in front of the stars. Slipping through Valtor Prime's perimeter required a combination of old tactics and dangerous improvisation. He rode a maintenance drone down from orbit, disabling its security ping with a single chip the size of a grain of rice. The descent burned across his armor plating, the heat biting at the seams. When the drone docked, Reaper slipped from its belly and into the shadow of a delivery corridor. There were guards, but they looked inward, not down. Inside the Academy compound, everything gleamed. The walkways were lined with trees imported from dying planets, grown from soil mixed with gold dust for ceremonial effect. Reaper moved silently, blending in with maintenance bots during class changes, hiding in crawl spaces when security drones swept too close. Every breath was calculated, every step placed with care. Siler's quarters were located in the central spire. High security, biometric access, sealed airspace. No windows. Reaper reached him anyway. He waited until after nightfall. Siler returned alone from the library, his datapad glowing faintly in one hand. He looked like any boy might, curious, distracted, humming a half-remembered tune. He passed through the biometric scan. The door sealed behind him. Inside, he set down his pad and removed his boots. Then the lights flickered. Reaper stepped from the shadows. Siler turned sharply, freezing in place. His eyes locked onto the skull mask, and the datapad slipped from his hand. Are you real?" the boy asked. No tremble in his voice. No defiance either. Just clarity. "I've read about you," he said. "They call you the Reaper." Reaper said nothing. Siler looked at the floor, then back up. "You're here to kill me." "Yes." Silence settled like dust. "I didn't do anything," the boy said. "I never met my grandfather. I never supported what he did. Your family murdered a human child. You carry their name, their legacy." "I didn't choose my name," Siler said, voice quiet now. "I've spent every year trying to be different from them." Reaper's hand hovered over his rifle. "I read about Eli Vega," Siler continued. "About his parents. I know what happened on Alarine. I watched it. More than once." That admission surprised Reaper. He didn't show it, but it paused the movement of his trigger finger. "I didn't cry when I saw it," the boy said. "Not because I wasn't sad. I was just ashamed. I thought if I ever met someone from Earth, I'd apologize." "You think that would be enough?" Siler shook his head. "No, but maybe if I survived, I could do something that would matter. Something that would honor them." Reaper stepped closer, each movement deliberate. "You are the last." "I know. You understand what that means?" The boy nodded. "That if I die, the bloodline ends. The name Nasker disappears forever." Reaper stood over him, rifle raised. Siler didn't look away. He didn't beg. He simply waited. In that moment, Reaper felt the weight of every mission collapse in his silence. Eli Vega's eyes had pleaded. Siler's eyes didn't plead. They accepted. That was worse. He lowered the rifle. "I should kill you," he said. "Not for what you've done, but for what your name still holds." "I won't wear it," Siler said. "Not again. Not after this." Reaper turned. The door unlocked with a coded press from his gauntlet. Before leaving, he looked back once. If I hear your name again, if I see it on any flag, any document, any campaign, you won't, Siler said. The assassin disappeared into the darkness without another word. Siler stood in silence for long minutes after he was gone, staring at the spot where death had stood and chosen mercy instead. Reaper didn't return to his ship immediately. He climbed to the top of a satellite tower outside the city and watched the twin suns begin to rise. Their light painted the buildings gold, but beneath the beauty, he saw only bones. He activated the final mission transmission. Langston's voice was calm, cautious. Mission complete. Yes. Target eliminated? There was a pause. The bloodline is ended, he said. Langston caught the meaning. Understood. You're clear for return. I won't be coming back. Reaper, I was supposed to be the last thing they saw before justice fell. That part's done. You have nowhere else to go. I'm not going. I'm disappearing. You'll be hunted. I always was. He ended the transmission and removed the mask for the last time, letting the rising sun hit his face. It warmed the scars, the hollow of his eyes, the quiet lines time had carved. There was no peace in him, but there was something like it, a silence where anger used to live. In the capital, Siler Nasker quietly withdrew from the academy within the week. He changed his name, left Valtor, and vanished into the outer systems. Rumors would one day surface that he joined relief efforts on war-torn planets or worked in shadow to dismantle what the Empire had built. Some said he died in a mining accident. Others claimed the Reaper kept him alive as insurance. The truth was irrelevant. What mattered was that no one spoke the name Nasker again. On Earth, the story of the Vega family faded from headlines, but not from memory. Statues rose. Streets were renamed. A boy's face, curious, hopeful, was etched into marble on the lunar capital. Below it, a single inscription, so others might live free. As for the Reaper, no trace was ever found. No signal, no return. Only a trail of bodies left in his wake, and a single message etched into the archives of the Galactic Council by an unknown hand. Humanity does not forget.